Well, let's see. We still got a couple minutes.
Oh, we did?
You want to get started?
I did.
You want to get started? All right. I'm going to let Leah introduce. Thank you for coming tonight, guys. Appreciate you being here. But as you know, this is an AED event, so hopefully you have signed to get your points. And Leah is our vice president. She has been in charge for us making the arrangements and setting up the meeting. So I'm going to let Leah introduce our speakers tonight.
Hey everybody, I'm Leah. Thank you so much for coming out to this meeting. I know there's a football game going on tonight, so you guys get like extra props for being here right now. Thank you so much. Tonight we have with us 3 representatives from the USC School of Medicine in Columbia. We have Dr. Stallworth, Dr. Thornhill, and Dr. Welsh. So please help me welcome them and give a big round of applause.
Thanks, Leah. I'm going to be kind of quick at the very beginning, and I kind of made a joke a while ago about your being here and giving, and it just reminded me that part of being a physician, and in fact a huge part of being a physician, is that you need to have the constitution that understands giving, because a lot of medicine requires you to give of yourself. It is a profession of sacrifice, and therefore it's not for everybody, and that's fine, but the rewards that you get as part of sacrificing, it's amazing what you get back in return. So again, kind of setting that stage when I said that reminded me just to be sure I communicated that to you. I'm going to just say hello to everyone right quick. We thought, I've come to Clemson for many years, thought we'd do something a little different this time. We had dinner with some of the officers of AED, etc., who were guiding us into what you would want to hear from us. So we're going to try to obviously use this time to be sure you get the information you need about the medical school application process, obviously specifically to USC Columbia. So to that end, one of the issues that was brought up was to talk about the curriculum, which we'll do. But we thought we'd set the stage right quick, and this is a real quick 10-minute kind of PowerPoint about USC School of Medicine that Dr. Thornhill is going to lead us.
So, all right, first of all, welcome. Glad to see you all here. I'd like to go around the room just very quickly. Just tell me your first name and tell me where your hometown is. Start right over there.
Okay. Jenny and Rochester, Michigan.
Rochester, Michigan. That sounds cold.
That's why she does
Augusta, Georgia.
Augusta, Georgia.
Rebecca, Columbia, Maryland.
Columbia, Maryland. Ooh, that's one of those standard little cities that they put together up there.
It's right between DC and Baltimore.
Yes.
Caitlin, St. George, South Carolina.
Okay.
Nate,
Go around.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
All right.
Danielle, Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay. I went to Annapolis last. Beautiful city. First time I ever went there. Okay.
Adam, Newberry, South Carolina.
Raphael, Singapore City, Singapore.
Wow, we've come a little ways.
Witt, Apex, North Carolina.
Okay. Apex.
South of Raleigh. Just
South of
Raleigh.
Raleigh. Got it. Thank you. All right.
Paige, Spartanburg, South Carolina.
All right.
Anna, Rockton, Illinois.
Okay.
Ethan, Pickens, South Carolina.
All right.
Allison, Greenville, South Carolina.
Now we'll come back around the other way.
Originally Long Beach, California.
Okay. What's your name?
Cali.
All right. That's okay.
Matthew from Aiken, South Carolina.
Stephanie, Fresno, California.
Matt Floyd, Kingsport, Tennessee.
Andrew, Powdersville, South Carolina.
Okay.
Lainey, Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Chris, Anderson, South Carolina.
All right.
Julia, Charleston, South Carolina. Amanda, Duluth, Georgia.
Okay.
Kirsten, Greenville, South Carolina.
Got it.
Bob, Johns Creek, Georgia.
I hope there's not a quiz on this afterwards. All right. Go on.
Cole, Asheville, North Carolina. Thomas, Graham, South Carolina.
John, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Kristen, Atlanta, South Carolina.
Madeline, Columbia, South Carolina.
Columbia, South Carolina. And where are you a former Miss South Carolina, or you were just don't go there? Okay, I'll stop. I won't pick on Dr. Welch anymore tonight. I'll let Dr. Stallworth do that. So I can say, first of all, welcome. My name is J.T. Thornhill. I'm a psychiatrist by trade, so that's my profession. I'm the Associate Dean for Medical Education at the School of Medicine in Columbia, but I'm also the chair of the admissions committee. And so been chair of the admissions committee for a number of years, served on the admissions committee for a number of years before that. And so what I want to do, because kind of very quickly, or somewhat quickly here, is give you a little bit of an overview of the School of Medicine, but we really, and kind of most of the times when we come up here and when Dr. Stallworth comes up, we try to answer your questions and want this to be as informative as we can for you. But I did kind of want to talk about a few things that hopefully and hit on the curriculum a little bit here. So here's the School of Medicine. That's actually building 1 there. The School of Medicine used to be the administrative building for the school. It's on the grounds of the VA hospital, and so got one of the kind of prettiest grounds that I think as far as the medical schools are concerned. But that's the front of the building. This is where we all are located now. This is building 3. This is actually the old psychiatric building for the VA hospital, and I actually did my internship year there, or part of my internship year there when I was a psychiatrist, but doing my psychiatric training, but now it's our administrative building. So for those of you who come down for an interview, for interview day, this is the building you're looking for, okay? You come through those front doors and you'll be right where you want to be. So the School of Medicine was created back in 1973. So it was the second school in the state after MUSC that was created many, many kind of years before that. And the mission of the school at that point and still is to put practicing physicians out into the state of South Carolina. We still, even to this day, have a shortage of physicians in the state. I'm sure many of you are aware. If you ever try to get an appointment with a doctor, whether you're in Greenville or Spartanburg or even in Columbia, you can't just call up a doctor and get an appointment with them in the next week. You'll be lucky if you get an appointment in 2 or 3 weeks. And so our mission is to put out practicing physicians here into South Carolina and to improve the health of the people of South Carolina. First class was in 1977. We had 24 students. 2012, we're up to 100 students, and we're looking to kind of stay at 100 students. And so, relatively speaking, we are a small medical school. That's on kind of the smaller side when you kind of look at medical schools and look at medical school classes. From my standpoint, I think it's one of the strengths of our school is that we get to know our students individually, and we can do that because we keep the class size relatively small. Primary teaching sites, the Dorn VA Hospital, which is right next door to where the medical school is, or where the first 2 years is, Palmetto Health Richland, which is across town in Columbia, and the Department of Mental Health are kind of our main teaching sites in the use. LCME accreditation. Everyone kind of always wants to know, you can't be an accredited medical school, you can't get your MD degree unless you're graduating from a school that has an accreditation. So we've had an accreditation ever since we started. Last one was in 2009. We have a full 8-year accreditation at this particular point. And one of the things I really like to point out is that the accrediting body recognized that education was our primary mission for a medical school. And that even when we look at our graduation questionnaire, and so these are our graduates who, when they graduate, they fill out a questionnaire. 95%, a little over 95% of the class of 2011 reported they were satisfied with their overall medical education. National average being 88. I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but to us that's a really big difference, that almost every single student was satisfied with their medical education coming out as compared to other schools across the country. People ask about our examination rates. You can see them right there. School of Medicine versus national pass rates. Our pass rate tends to be at or above the national average. Step 1 is taken after the end of your second year. Step 2 is taken at the end of your third year, and Step 3 is taken once you get into your internship and afterwards. So we do really well from the standpoint of our students come in, they pass their boards, they go on and become practicing physicians. 85% of our students get one of their top 3 choices for residency. About 67% get their top choice. So we also do well when people kind of talk about, well, what do your students go into? How well do they do? Do they get what they want? Pretty much, yes. 40% of our graduates stay in state for residency, and we send our graduates all across the country. So our graduates are in residencies at Duke and Johns Hopkins, in the Mayo Clinic, anywhere that you can think of in a big city or a little town. We've got individuals there who've gone on to do their residencies there. Residency choice. Now, as I said, our mission is to put in practicing doctors in the state of South Carolina. So we certainly are looking for primary care physicians, pediatricians, internists, family practitioners. And about half of our students, a little over half of our students, end up going into primary care. So we don't necessarily select for that, but that's what we're looking for. We need more primary care physicians in the state. We consider that part of our mission. That being said, the rest of the class go into pretty much anything else that you can think of. A large chunk of them, OBGYN, emergency medicine, and psychiatry. That makes up about 3/4 of our class. The rest become surgeons and neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgery and radiology, anesthesia, anything else that you could possibly imagine, they're all listed in there. And we've got great students who end up in those fields as well. Locations all across the country. About over 100 graduates are practicing it in small communities in South Carolina. The large majority, as I said, about half of our graduates end up staying here in state to practice, which is good. We need more physicians in the state. It's one of the reasons the large majority of the class of our makeup is of South Carolina residents, because we're hoping that they're going to stay here and help the rest of the citizens here in the state. And there's a kind of a map of kind of where you see people are. So large majority end up in South Carolina, a lot in the neighboring states there of Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina. But everywhere except, poor, Wyoming here. No one wanted to go to Wyoming to practice. I don't think there's anyone in Rhode Island either, but everywhere else, there's somewhere across the country. Here's the class profile. You can actually find this on our website right now. This was the class of 2016, so they've been with us now for almost 2 months. They just got back from fall break. And so when you're kind of trying to compare yourself to what does our class look like, what does our class makeup look like, 3.7 was the average GPA for this class coming in, 28's our MCAT, large number of colleges and universities are represented across South Carolina, large majority of them South Carolina residents, lots of majors, although about half of them are biology majors, and a good chunk are also chemistry majors after that, and pretty much an even mix of males and females, although this particular class had a little bit more males than females, but a lot of times they're pretty much right at even. I had put this in here since I was coming to Clemson. I went and found a tiger paw, and I'll put it up there for y'all. Clemson alumni make up 15% of this class, by the way. So after USC, which usually about a third of the class comes from USC, we don't have any set numbers on that. That's just kind of how the class fell out. But about a third of the class is from USC. About 15% of the class is from Clemson. So half of our class is pretty much made up of either USC alumni or Clemson alumni. Makes it interesting during football season. All right, so you wanted to know a couple things about the curriculum. Now, I would describe our curriculum as fairly standard, number one, and fairly traditional, and it's worked for our students, and we kind of really like it that way. But what I wanted to spend a couple minutes on, and then I'm going to stop and turn things back over to Dr. Stallworth and Dr. Welsh here, is give you a little idea about kind of the unique things. So everyone's got to take anatomy and biochemistry and physiology at some point, and whether it's all mixed together in an organ-based curriculum or it's all separated out in a traditional curriculum like we use, you're still going to get to that subject matter at one point or another. So let me tell you about a couple things that we do that you don't necessarily find at other schools. One of them is our Senior Mentor program. The other is our integrated ultrasound curriculum. So here's our Senior Mentor program. Some of you may or may not have kind of heard about it. Our Senior Mentor program, we're very interested in geriatrics. As I said, we're very interested in primary care. So as first-year students, we pair you up with another member of your class, and then we assign you to an elderly individual living in the community, and you follow them for the entire 3.5 years that you're there. So you go to their homes, you learn to do physical exams on them, take histories, check their diet, talk to them about advanced directives, and so the things that we teach you in class, then you go out and practice on your senior mentors. And we have senior mentors who've done this for years. We've had this program for about 12 years now. It's nationally, I went ahead of myself a little bit, it's nationally recognized. We ended up in Parade Magazine a few years ago talking about, those are two of our former students there with their senior mentor. That was Dan Brather when they were talking about it. They did a segment on our program and what we do with it. But we're really very big on seniors and very big on people understanding about seniors and how to take care of seniors. And so I used to call it the adopt a grandparent program, but you adopt a grandparent, they adopt a grandchild. They feed you, they bring you into their homes, they treat you, like their grandkids, but they also teach you about medicine and how to treat the elderly and how to respect the elderly, and certainly about the medical conditions that you see with the elderly. And it's a really great program for us. It's something that you don't find at other medical schools. The other thing that's kind of really big and certainly very hot right now is our ultrasound program. So this is actually our OBGYN clerkship director down in Columbia. That's obviously not a real woman. That's not a real baby that you're seeing there on the ultrasound machine. But we started about 6 years ago now an integrated ultrasound curriculum. Literally from the first day you come to medical school down at USC in Columbia, you learn how to turn on the ultrasound machine, and by the time you get out of USC in 4 years, while you're not a sonographer, you know how to use the ultrasound machine, and you know how to use the ultrasound machine clinically. I was with a meeting with my boss, who's the dean today, and the dean's just gotten back from Barcelona, and he said in no uncertain detail that we are the world leader in ultrasound education when it comes to ultrasound and ultrasound education in the country and in the world. There's no other medical school that's doing it like we're doing it, and no other medical school that's doing it at the extent that we're doing it at. This is the ultrasound machine we started with. Now, when I was in medical school, which was a little after Dr. Stallworth, but probably about the same time as Dr. Welsh, ultrasound machines were about that size. So you had to push them down the hall. They were rather large. They weren't very useful at that particular point. This is an ultrasound machine now. This is the size of a laptop. That's what our students will start working on, as the laptop-size ultrasound machines. So it's a great teaching tool. It's safe in diagnostic modality. It is becoming, in some sense, the stethoscope of the country and of the world. Now it's not just as important to listen to heart sounds, it's able to see how the heart is operating. And you can carry around an ultrasound machine and be able to do that now, and that's what we teach our students to do. Because, as I said, that's what the ultrasound machine used to look back, 1963, that was the year I was born. I was born at 6:01 p.m. on October 25th, 1963, which happens to be today, so yes, it's my birthday. I'll put a little plug in there. But that's what they look like. So this is what they start on with the students with the laptop, and this is what we give them in their third year. So that's what you carry around in your third year on 3 of your rotations. It is the size of your smartphone. It's called the V-scan, and you take the V-scan in the hospital, and we show you how to use the V-scan so that you can use it to look at the heart. You can look at it to look at arteries. You can look at it to find, you can do the sonogram on there if you want to, but this is the size of the ultrasound machine we're using in our third year with our students now. This is one you can plug into your smartphone. We don't have that one yet. It's experimental at this point, but these are developers up in Washington State who've learned how to take their smartphone, use a probe, plug it in, and use the ultrasound machine on your smartphone. So that's where this technology is going. So every physician will be able to have an ultrasound with them and be able to use it in their daily practice. And why do you want to use it in your daily practice? All right, so this talks a little bit about kind of the didactics and the labs that we do. I'm not going to belabor those points at this point because I want to get to this. These are our students in the lab. That's actually a real patient there. They're looking at the carotid arteries. They're trying to find if there are plaques in the particular carotid arteries, and that's one of our faculty instructors who's helping them out with that. Obviously, these were not staged at all. These would just be happened to walk in and take the picture. Okay, that's supposed to be a joke. A few people caught that, but not everybody. There's a V-scan, and one of our faculty members working with one of the students on the V-scan. And this is what it looks like. Now, this is when you're starting looking at the heart, looking at the heart valves, so that if you're interested in you're listening to the heart, everyone learns how to listen to the heart. But not only can you listen to the heart, you can see it. You can see the heart valves. You can see what's going on and what a tremendous difference that makes, in being able to kind of diagnose and treat your patients. Now, here's what, so we teach them this. There's a gallstone. That's what it looks like. There's normal gallbladder. That's what a gallstone looks like. And you're able to be able to find those images, capture those images, read those images. We're not trying to make you a radiologist, but we're trying to be able to, you can do this at the bedside, you can do this in your offices, you can do this in the emergency room. Love this one. You see the vein, leg there. A lot of times maybe your grandparents have heard someone who's gotten a clot in your leg. But you can figure it out by using an ultrasound machine. And it looks just like this. There's normal, there's compression of the central femoral vein. Now, if it doesn't compress, you got a clot in it. And you can sit there and you can look at it. Just take your little ultrasound, pull it out of your pocket, put it on the patient. You can know right then. No ordering a lab, no waiting for it, and that's what our students are able to do. There's one, for those of you thinking about ophthalmology, we can show you how to look at an attached retina and figure whether that's going on. That's what it looks like. And all sorts of other things. Now, one of the big things about ultrasound, one of the things that we teach it for is it helps with safety. When you're a medical student, certainly when you're an intern and resident, you're going to be doing things like placing central lines, taking lines, putting them into veins, putting them to arteries, directing them towards the heart. Well, there's all sorts of ways you can mess up with that. You can drop the needle into a lung. You can pierce the wrong thing that you're wanting to pierce. Not with the ultrasound. It looks like that. That's what it looks like. You take the picture and you know you've got it in the vein, or you know you've got it in the artery. And that's all you got to do. And so that's, so you're not hitting the lung. You're not hitting something else that you want to hit. And that's what we teach our students to do. Then aorta with an aneurysm. That's what it looks like in ultrasound. So if you're looking for this, you see that, not so good. Again, as long as you know how to use the machine and take the picture, you got it. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to turn things back over to Dr. Stallworth, but that's at least kind of a couple ideas about our curriculum and types of things we're doing there. Turn it over to Dr. Stallworth and Dr. Welch, and then we'll certainly be able to answer questions for you. Dr. Stallworth, all yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say the reason I preceded Dr. Thornhill in medical school is because it took him several years to get in.
That's true.
So I just want to make that very clear. Would you like to come in, Dr. West? I didn't think so. Okay. Let me get a little serious, and I hope you really capture that presentation, and it really resonates with you in terms of us being on the cutting edge of medical education regarding ultrasound and the senior mentor program. But as Dr. Thornhill would certainly tell you, that is not mutually exclusive from all the other things that you have to do. For example, I'm a pediatrician, and Dr. Wells is just a child psychiatrist. And if you think about it, I rode up here with two psychiatrists. Anyone want to go home and help me out? I mean, you know. But the point is, all of the fundamentals of your medical education also take place. I think one of the particular slides that you saw, however, I hope you really took into account, because why this looks so good and whether it looks so good or not to you, the real bottom line is you have to get in. And so what we want to be sure we do tonight is to help you get the best application possible for getting in medical school. And in truth, I think that the three of us will give you information that's going to be germane to getting in medical school, whether it's in this state or whether it's out of state, because there are a lot of commonalities among all the different medical schools and their applications, but there are some differences. And so there are, as I mentioned, some differences in the application process, just like there are some differences within the curriculum. So you have to kind of do some homework, and you have to obviously apply to the school, and then you have to hope the two come together to make it a win-win situation for you, for the future of medicine, for the state that you're going to practice in, because medicine has a much bigger goal than either you or me. I mean, in truth, the goal is the patient, and it's the care of the patient. And obviously, as a state medical school, we're interested in training physicians that are going to help take care of the constituents of South Carolina. Doesn't mean you have to. You saw the national map of where all our graduates go to. But in general, as a state school, that is something that every state is going to have as one of its mandates. And that's why when you look at the application process, it's always going to be easier for any of you to get in your state school. And your state is defined by certain criteria that I won't have to go through. But the point is, we look at you not only as a South Carolinian, if you're a South Carolinian, but for example, going to Clemson, even though you may be from Georgia, you would be considered an out-of-stater with close South Carolina ties, as opposed to somebody from California who would be applying to our school, who's never been in the state at all, has no contact with the state, has no ties with the state. That would be a complete out-of-stater. So it's easier to get in relative to everything if you're an in-stater, out-of-stater with close ties, out-of-stater. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the numbers there were pretty sobering, I would think. Your average GPA is 3.7. You did see that, okay? The average MCAT, and I know some of you are freshmen here and you're not to that point yet. And in fact, for you, the MCAT will be changing somewhat, but that's 2 or 3 years away for you. So we're going to look at the MCAT that we're looking at right now. There are 3 big categories: verbal, physical, biological sciences, that are assessed from 0 to 15. And then there's a writing sample that's assessed from J to T. So the highest you could make would be 15 times 3, 45, T. That would be the highest possible score. I've never seen it. I don't even think it exists. But that's just giving you a reference of how to figure out the 28, and the missing was an O, the letter. Okay? So that's the average MCAT. So again, these are benchmarks that you need to be looking at relative to your application. When you look at the number of applications to USC School of Medicine for 100 spots last year, 3,200 applications. We've already got 2,200 presently, and as you should know, you can apply all the way up through December. So we may actually increase the amount of applications for this year. I mean, think about that, 100 slots, 3,400 applications. Now, before you go south on me, understand that a certain portion of those are out-of-staters. And then a certain portion of those are out-of-staters with close ties. And then, of course, the remainder are in-state applicants. And so you divide the pool accordingly, and you understand that your competition may or may not be better or worse than those numbers may appear at first blush. Okay? But the numbers mean something. You've got to get the numbers to get an application to get to the interview. Because if you can't get to the interview, you can't get in medical school. Okay? Does that make sense? But we look at everyone as an individual applicant because we understand, for example, that your freshman year, you might have not been mature, you might have not known you wanted to go to medical school, you might have had no ideas that the numbers had to be such as this. And once you generate a GPA, what happens? You can't get rid of it. It's always there, no matter what you do. That average GPA never will get to where it could have been. Don't give up. We look at that. We break down the GPA by year, by courses, to be honest, where you went to school and what courses you took. Now, we don't have a formula, so I can't give you that. It's more of a gestalt of us knowing the lay of the land of South Carolina and looking at you as an individual and factoring in the fact that you had mononucleosis and you were in the hospital for 1 month, 1 year, and obviously your GPA was not as good as it should have been. Or, here's a great 4.0 GPA, but it was basket weaving and badminton and Clemson football and homecoming queen 101. You get the drift, okay? So we really look at it in toto to try to give you the best shot to be successful in medical school and to help us be successful so that ultimately we put out the product that's going to be a good physician for people, again, for South Carolina, but you don't have to, but at least that's what our job is. And we want you to be successful, meaning you have to pass the boards, and you saw those numbers, because there are certain states that you can't get a license in if you're not boarded regarding steps of the national boards, or when you go into your specialty, there are additional boards that come with that particular specialty. For example, in pediatrics, the pediatric boards that you take at your end of your 3 years of residency. So that's kind of the philosophy and what this is kind of all about. To jump to the interview, which generally is where you're, you can see the numbers. I mean, the numbers don't lie, there they are. And I hope you realize that those numbers are looked at with a little different slant here or there, but still you're getting the ballpark figures that you have to work with. The interview is a little different animal. And the interview, classically at USC School of Medicine in Columbia, is on Wednesday afternoon. We may have 20 applicants coming. You're interviewed by 2 members of the committee. There are 2 30-minute interviews. And then we go and talk about you and you get rated, and then it just falls out numbers-wise in terms of what the competition is overall, where your number fits, and then whether you're accepted or not. And of course there are other things that go on that day. You get tours, you talk to financial people, and you learn much more about the school. But the bottom line to you is that interview, which is so important. And this has, again, morphed over the years, and I am just amazed with what comes into that interview that reflects that application. So please hear this. When you complete your application to medical school, both the primary and supplemental application, pay attention to every word you put in that application. Pay attention to the picture that you send us, because we read every word. If there are 10 misspelled words, we're going to draw a conclusion about you. You're not detail-oriented. You don't think that, I might need a little help here. You're showing a limitation that, frankly, as a physician, might not be in your best interest. Okay? So please make this application be the best that it can be. Don't send a picture with you having a beer at the bar. That just is not professional. And whether we want to argue it or not, the practice of medicine is a professional practice. Okay? Perhaps some of those that had dinner with me tonight would think I'm not too professional. Certainly Dr. Welch does not think I'm very professional because I'm constantly getting at her. But that's the fun part of medicine, because we are people too. And you have to have, and I think that represents the art of medicine. And that's what the interview is trying to tease out. We've got the science, because we can look at those grades, those biologies, those chemistries. We can see how you think under standardized testing of the MCAT. What the interview is, and that's the science, if you will. What the interview is trying to do is to tease out, what's your heart like? We got your brain with the numbers. What is your heart like? And how do you communicate what that heart is like? And we're very interested, I don't care how smart you are, if you don't have the heart for what we consider to be equivalent to the science, that is the art matching the science of medicine, then that interview would be a failed interview and you would not get accepted. So once again, it's a little bit of a moving target in the sense that I can't say, well, if you'll answer this question this way, and this question this way, and this question this way, you're going to get in. What's wrong with that? Number one, everyone's going to get different questions, because there is no pat recipe. Number two, I'm not sure of the answer. And number three, your answer would be totally reflective of you as an individual, not me as an individual. Okay? But common to it all is still that understanding of us who are interviewing you, that medicine is for you, that you've got the communication skills for medicine, that you've got the heart for medicine, that you've got the empathy for medicine, that you've got the experience to know what you're getting into. And oh yeah, you got to have the science, you got to be smart enough, but we know that by those numbers. And so if you can't meet those numbers, then you're probably not going to get an interview anyhow. So we'll never find out how good a heart you may have. Okay? So that's kind of the quick and dirty bottom line to that. Now, as part of that application process, I think that as students in undergraduate who are competing for where you want to go to school and to get in medical school, there's always the need to have important support at your level, and that's part of what the interview may be about. What is your support system? And I'll just get Dr. Welch to comment right quick because she's the ombudsperson for the medical school, which is a supportive position for students once they get in medical school. But it kind of echoes, if you will, the global process, the total commitment we have to you. I mean, our point is to get you in medical school, and if you're good enough to get in and you show us all those wonderful traits, is to keep you in and to have you be a successful physician. So as the ombudsman, Dr. Welch, you want to comment at all in terms of your position and how that works, and et cetera, et cetera?
In the first and second year, there's an ombudsperson. In the third and fourth year, and I'm the ombudsperson for the third and fourth year. And essentially, I'm the advocate for students. If they feel for some reason that their education is being impaired by the way they've been treated, or by a grade or an evaluation, they can contact me any way that they want to contact me. Anonymously, email, phone, meeting. I chat with them. If they don't want it to go any further than our interview, that's where we kind of keep it, and I advise them or just listen to them if they want to take it to another level, and I'm willing to do that. I work for the student, and it's confidential, and fortunately we have pretty satisfied medical students. I'm not real busy in that part of my role, but I'm there and I make myself known at every orientation, and my number's everywhere, so I'm easy to find.
Yeah, and Dr. Welch is also the curriculum committee, as is Dr. Thornhill. I'm certainly on the admissions committee. I lead the clerkship of pediatrics in the third year of medical school. But there may be particular questions you may have about the curriculum specifically, but I think the take-home message is to look at the nuances that we are trying to let you see why and how we're different and the reasons for it, because generally speaking, our traditional curriculum, which is, anatomy, and histology, and pharmacology, and physiology, is all kind of primary to those first 2 years, with the intro to clinical medicine, where you get with your senior mentor, you come over and get introduced to patients kind of as an elective if you want to, and come to the different departments in your Wednesday afternoon that traditionally is off in the first 2 years of medical school. You do have some small groups with problem-based learning, small groups with learning human sexuality. So there's a lot of give and take among the faculty with the students. I was listening to somebody, what you were telling me about your anatomy here with Madeline or something, and how
Dr.
he's
Cummings.
available for after class and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of commonality at our school. Our school is smaller, it's a little more intimate. You've got many more professors per student than you would at a bigger school per professor. So you can take advantage of that because we really are interested in you being successful. Having said that, we are not enabling bad behavior. You're adults, you're going to be treated as adults, and you're going to be expected to act like adults. And certainly Dr. Welch can tell you that my reputation, and I might as well say it because I'm sure she'll probably get up here and say it, is such that I do exactly that. But core to that is that I'm for you, I'm not against you. I'm trying to help you be successful, and I'm trying to guide you away from the potholes that exist in the professional life. And there's this nice blend of a wonderful professional and personal life that all of us should want to achieve. But medicine, as you've heard, as some of you in this room have heard me say before, I consider it a very jealous mistress. And you have to think about that for a second. A very jealous mistress. And it is. But medicine demands and deserves a lot from you. Doesn't mean you can't have a balance in your life with your personal life. But you have to be sure you understand what is required and are willing to give it and want to give it and be buoyed up by giving it to see what you can do to help other people who will tell you things as a doctor that they would not tell their spouse. It's amazing the power that you have, but the responsibility of the power that you have, so that you can help those particular individuals, perhaps many times in their worst time of need. As a pediatrician in the past and running the ICU, I think that one of the things I teach the students that come through who are interested in pediatrics, not everyone can be a pediatrician, everyone should be a pediatrician. A lot of people are running away from it. That's okay. But I think that one of the things that a pediatrician has to be able to do is to be able to handle probably the worst thing that can happen in anyone's life, and that's the death of your child. And as a pediatrician, you've got to have the skills, communication and otherwise, to be able to help a parent through the worst possible thing that can probably happen. I mean, it's bad when your parent dies, it's bad when your spouse dies, but I'm going to suggest to you probably the worst thing that can happen in your life would be the death of your child. Some of you may have a child, I don't know, but some of you probably futurely will. So the point is, there are all of these different dynamics of medicine that we try to give you the fundamentals for, and then as you pyramid up through your education, then you decide those parts that are for or against or your best or you don't particularly care for, and then that guides you into what specialty you choose. And obviously that goes on and up the ladder to be a surgeon, a cardiothoracic surgeon. I mean, you can just get more and more pointed toward a specialty depending on what your desires and needs are. So I will stop right quick if all that makes sense. Dr. Thorne here, you want to comment?
It makes perfect
further?
sense to me.
Okay, good. And it is your birthday. Dr. Welch, any other comment? Because I always like to turn it over for them to ask questions and be sure we're here. Because we're here, as much as we're here for you, we're here for us, we're here for you. So I want you to ask questions if you can, or guide us into areas if we didn't cover them that you need and want to know about. Any other comments?
No, both these guys are on the admissions committee, and I'm not. As you said, I'm on the curriculum committee, and I'm the ombuds person, but I'm here because I know Clemson students are strong students, and we want the best students at our medical school, and so I just wanted to come to be a part of telling you that and telling you about, you can see what great teachers we have. Dr. Stallworth, can't even count all the awards he gets for teaching, locally, nationally. Dr. Thornhill's an amazing teacher as well. You know, I didn't go to USC School of Medicine. I went to another medical school, but I started working for them shortly after I graduated from medical school. And the contrast to me and my medical school and their medical school was amazing, and how intimate. What you talk about the small class size, how teaching, everyone there works there because it's about education, it's about teaching. I mean, you can't get away from teaching. And I felt like in medical school it was all about, let's get this done. I'm so tired, I hate this. You know, I just kind of felt like it just wasn't the same atmosphere. And at USC School of Medicine, people get excited about teaching. And I know the curriculum was something you all were talking about or wanted to know more about. Serving on the curriculum committee, my observations are that that committee, which is made up of basic science doctors, clinical doctors, medical students of all ages, administration, student, Dr. Kenny, what is his, not student health, but
Student services.
Student services. And, you know, the goal is to make sure you are well prepared for every level of your future career, from, you know, starting at the boards that you're taking within medical school, and to be prepared for a physician out of medical school. Things are tweaked. We seek feedback from students, positive and negative. We tweak things based on that feedback. We take seriously your time, and we don't want to waste your time. We only make you come to class for the amount of time that we feel like you need to be in class, because we know different people learn differently. Some people learn better at home studying. So we take that committee very seriously and make sure, compare ourselves to other medical schools to make sure we're doing it well and up to date, and it's an active working committee.
Okay. You had a question?
Yes. Do you allow students to take external rotations at all?
Students to take, now you mean electives elsewhere?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Your traditional year of medical school, no matter where you go, with a few differences among the different schools, is pretty set in terms of your first, second, and third year. However, there are breaks, for example, between the first and second year, where you can do some things on your own or set up some things on your own that don't count in terms of part of the curriculum for grades. The fourth year, however, is the big year. Now, in the third year, there are two-week electives that you can take, but that might be a little bit difficult for you to totally go away. But in the fourth year, you have 6 electives currently? 5 4-week electives. And in fact, we encourage students to go to Bolivia, to go to South Africa, not to mention go to other places within the United States to take electives, to view other types of medical education, or to many times look at those programs because they think, well, I may want to do my residency there, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, that's definitely encouraged, both third world as well as national experiences that I think are very, very important for medical students to be able to have under their belt, if you will. So the quick and dirty is yes.
I was just going to add to that. I did put it on our slides because it's a pilot program for us this year. We're the Association of American Medical Schools, or American Medical Colleges across the country, has a pilot program out this year that we're one of a dozen schools across the United States participating in, called GLOW, for Global Health Learning Opportunities. And it is allowing our students, and there's about, I'd say 16 or 18 international medical schools that are also participating in this, and only students from those schools are allowed to do exchanges for electives and rotations from across the world, whether that be in Africa or Europe or Asia. But one of the things that we've always had students who do international electives, but a lot of times they've either been part of mission trips or they've set those up on their own. And this is an opportunity where everything is set up for them. They can apply for a standard application process, and whether it be one of the dozen schools here in this country or the 18 or so that are across the world, be able to go to those schools and have a set experience that you can find out about and plug yourself into without having to go through all of the difficulties that sometimes students have to try to set up their own international records. And they're absolutely encouraged. One of the, our dean, who Dr. Hopman, who again brought the ultrasound program for us to the School of Medicine, and said he was just in Barcelona, just got back. The Chinese delegation in Barcelona has approached him about coming to China to work on the ultrasound. It's one of those things that, right now you can, and we're working with several countries in Africa, you can take those images, you can teach people how to scan the images from the patient in the little clinic in whatever rural setting that you're in, and beam those images out into a cloud or across the world or across the country, and be able to read them and be able to make a diagnosis in real time from someone halfway around the world. And so we're very big on focusing our students on global health and world opportunities, whether it be in this country or around the world.
And by the way, let me say, we'll take another question. I know that y'all's lives are very busy. If you need to go, it won't upset us for you to leave. We appreciate your attention. We want you to stay till we're finished, but please feel comfortable enough leaving if you need to. That's not offensive to us. Another question? Area? Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, as far as the application, sometimes I heard that you get like a list of different organizations or things you're involved in. I've heard that you want to fill that up as much as possible.
But it has to be relevant.
But do you take into account, the fact that, that obviously undergraduates are very time crunched and, they can't do so many different clubs at one time.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work exactly?
Yeah. I really think the answer to your question is an individual answer to that individual overall application. I think there are students who work 40 hours a week. Well, because you're having to supplement your education with income. Well, we understand that, and that's a big deal. We have those who are athletes. Well, that takes a lot. Swimmers and that takes a lot of time. You can't be doing all these other things. But it's more related to not maybe the quantity, but the quality, and how you write about those experiences and how they make you be a better person, or how they make you be a better leader, or what you've learned about being involved in those particular organizations. Do you understand?
Yes.
But we complement that with the individual overall application. Like I say, it's just, but I will admit that if you, in fact, the other day I was interviewing this guy from Vanderbilt, and I started with this application. And there was nothing. There was nothing in those slots. And 37S, MCATs, 37 Vanderbilt, you know. And I have to admit, it took, well, when I got in there, what had happened, he had forgotten to click the button that actually sent that part of his application. He was totally aghast by it. And I said, have you gotten an interview anywhere else? And he said, no. And I said, well, that could be the reason why. I said, we were being nice enough to do this for you, but he really thanked us for alerting him because he had no idea he hadn't sent all that stuff. So, yeah, on that end of the spectrum, that would take me back. And, of course, he had stuff sit forward. But I think don't just fill it up, and don't fill it up with a bunch of high school stuff that you used to do. It has to be real. I think it's quality. But just understand that we understand your life as a student as long as it has validity and the other part of the application, if you will, matches that overall aspect. Does that make sense? Okay? Does that help you? Sure. And if anyone else wants to comment after learning about Wells, feel free.
One of the examples I use here, but also use other places, is one of our class presidents a few years ago. Graduated from here, he was on the football team. He didn't have an extensive list of other activities he did because he played on the football team for 4 years. Now, when you actually press them on it, he'll say the only games he ever played against were with Duke, and he sat on the bench the rest of the time. However, he practiced and he did that, and that is a tremendous amount of character and leadership and motivation. And so the fact that he didn't have a whole lot of other activities didn't really matter to us. It was the quality of what he had done, in addition to some of the shadowing experience, that really sold him. He was elected class president his first year. He graduated as class president, went on to do an anesthesia residency in Alabama, and just finished it up this year. And is a great fellow all the way around. But he wore his orange every single day when he was down there, at USC. But that he didn't need to fill out the application. He had the one thing that was just so impressive to us, that he managed to have good grades and a good MCAT, and that commitment to that, that level of activity was really important to us.
Sometimes we call this, because everyone, if you'll just think about it, if you're going to get to an interview, you're going to have the grades in general. You're going to have the MCAT score in general. Now, each of those are leveraged a little differently, but they're going to be there because you won't get interviewed otherwise. And we look at that application, we read that personal statement, and we read those letters of recommendation. And so all of it comes in to make a decision about interviewing you or not. And then we do look at, are you from the state or not, or et cetera, et cetera. But I was talking at dinner tonight. The other thing is, if you'll just think about it, kind of all of y'all are in that bowl. And we're looking for what I term the wow factor. So it's always kind of nice to have the wow factor. What separates you from all the other competitive applicants? And again, it's the quality of that wow factor, not necessarily the quantity of that wow factor. And so that's the way we kind of look at it. Okay?
That was actually my question,
Okay.
is how to make yourself stand out from the crowd during the application process, because really you are a sheet of paper coming in.
Yes,
and
you are.
until your interview process, you don't have that one-on-one personal experience.
Correct. You are a sheet of paper, but those letters of recommendation are sheets of paper that are not just your sheet of paper. So they are substantive, and they help us, if you're, for lack of a better word, a borderline applicant. And they'll push one way or the other. But within that application, again, that wow factor may stand out. Now, having said that, and you're exactly right, that will get you to the interview, or if you don't have it, perhaps keep you from the interview. And it's not that you maybe wouldn't be the best doctor possible, it's a competition. And if you've only got, say, 400 interview spots for the year and you're 401, well, you might as well have been 3,201, right? And so you're always trying to make your application be the best that's possible and have it stand out. Again, having said that, it's when you get to that interview that then pushes that borderline application into a positive, or might push that borderline into a negative. And of course, this one would increase your chances of getting in, and of course this one would. So it is a dynamic process, and that's why I just can't say, well, here's the menu, pick one from column 2, and you're going to get, it's just not like that. We do make it personal. We were talking about, I don't think this would be inappropriate, that one of the schools actually at Clemson look at the numbers. They don't interview to get in a certain school in at Clemson. They just look at the numbers. Which, okay, I understand, it works for the y'all, works for that school, I think that's fine. That would not work for us. Because we're trying to look at that heart, that art, and you know that through that personal interview. So that just doesn't work for medicine. You have to have that other part.
Just to add to that, you don't want to stand out too much, though. You don't want to try so hard to stand out that you draw
Over the
attention
top.
to. That's different. You know, like when you get a chance to express yourself in your application, you don't want to, you know.
I mean, the best advice is to be yourself, to be preparatory, but be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not.
I've seen rap songs before for personal statements. So, yes, that got my attention. It got my attention in the way of, okay, well, not no rap. That's how it got my attention. So, I don't mean to be overly simplistic, but find what you're passionate about and communicate that passion. My passion was I went to undergrad at Virginia, and we have a volunteer organization. They're a clearinghouse, and we have 3,000 students who volunteer across the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County every year in various and sundry things. And I joined that as a second-year student. I was a leader in the organization for the third and fourth year, and I spent a lot of time there. I was very passionate about that. And when I wrote about my personal statement, even 25 years ago now, I communicated my passion for why it was important to volunteer and what that helped not only for me as a leader and as character, but giving back to the community and why I wanted to be a physician. And I think if you see your application as a way to find what you're passionate about, whatever that may be, if it's fundraising. I mean, it doesn't have to be medically related. It might happen to be medically related, but communicate that passion. That's what that will set you apart, from the applications that don't do that.
But I do think your application has to have something about medical experience. If that's really missing, that's just a big area that needs to have something. I'm not sure I can quantify how much, but I think you have to use your common sense. Interview the other day with the committee and said, well, what's his medical experience? Oh, he had big medical experience. He had talked about how great, and when I got down to it, this person had shadowed a doctor for 1 hour one day. Okay, that's medical experience, got it, but no, not. I mean, it has to be substantive, but I'm a kind of a check-off person, a box person, and so I go, okay, medical experience, check, MCAT, check, GPA, check, leadership, check, research, check, wow factor, check. I mean, all those words I'm throwing at you probably ought to think about and have something kind of close around, if you will, within that kind of combination. Research is always nice. I think it's very substantive. On that list, if you had to say, oh, well, I don't have any medical experience, but I've got research, I would probably say that at USC School of Medicine, we probably need to flip that around and have some medical experience and then the research, if I were trying to give you advice. Again, having said that, it's a combination of all this stuff. It's not just that or just this. And it's within, were you able to do that because of the other commitments and the other parts of your application? I mean, we're people. We're not some...
Speak for yourself.
Yes, I'm a person. But so we understand life, but we also understand the realities of life. And and we understand sacrifice, like I mentioned. And so sometimes as a student, you're here tonight instead of watching the ball game. That, many of you, would be a sacrifice. I appreciate that. But I think Madeline was talking about these people here tonight understand their future, how important their future is for them. They're going to be here tonight to hear about it. Not that you don't care for football and want to watch it. It's just that this is important for you as you look to the goals you want to accomplish in life. And I can respect that and appreciate that very much.
How important is the volunteer work part of the application?
I think that's another check, volunteer. I certainly agree with that. I think that's very important to have some aspect of that you can talk about, that again shows that part of your character, that part of your giving, that part of medicine. So volunteerism, I think, is very important. And once again, you've got to find the place to volunteer. And maybe you're so busy that you're doing these other things, and that's a weakness. Okay, got it. But Yeah, that's a box you need to check off.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Regarding the actual medical school and classes and stuff, I know Dr. Walsh had mentioned that you keep students in school just as long as they need to be. Like, how long is a day for students? Is it 8 to 5, 9 to 5? How
Okay,
does that work?
good point. And she was being very nice when she said that, because to be honest with you, and Dr. Thornhill I teach at the 3rd and 4th years, and by Jupiter, they're there with me. But in the 1st and 2nd years,
I'm talking about the first and second.
exactly, you don't have to go to class. A lot of learners stay home and learn better online, because a lot of the things are online. So the typical day, the week, and this is, again, would be kind of a full day Monday, full day Tuesday, off Wednesday afternoon, full day Thursday, off Friday afternoon. That kind of thing. So you have afternoons off. But within that, there are classes that you may choose to not attend because you can learn it better online, or you want to study for a test. And so it's a little give and take. Would that be a fair, just off the top of my head, kind of schedule?
Essentially, classes are scheduled 8 to 4. Most, again, as Dr. Starworth said, nothing on Wednesday afternoon or Friday afternoon. You know, the typical student, you know, I encourage students to go to class. I certainly encourage students who may be struggling to go to class. But we do record our lectures. The PowerPoints are all online, and you can access them anytime you want to. You know, the average student is probably not going to all their classes, but they're certainly spending some time in labs, and small groups are required. But and then in the evening they're studying. I mean, they may go and exercise and get something to eat, but then they're back in the library at 6 o'clock, 6:30
Or the
at night.
anatomy lab.
Or the anatomy lab, and they're there till sometimes 10 or 11 at night, and then going home and turning back and coming around again. I mean, it is a full day. It is a different experience. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a culture shock for individuals at the level of undergrad, where you're used to having a few classes, or maybe you have a couple classes back to back, and then you have time off in between, or you can set your schedules that way. It's a much more rigorous schedule. You know.
I think the way you go south in medical school is, or as an example, would be to take a semester of college, and the amount of information that you're taught, have to learn to take tests. Okay, so let's take a semester. In medical school, it's the same type of information, if you will, but the amount of information that you had a semester at Clemson, you're going to have to learn and know and be tested on 3 weeks in medical school. And then there's the next 3 weeks of more, and that's the difference. It's the amount of information over a short amount of time that you've got to learn. So therefore, you have to study more to get that. So when you come into medical school, if you had a safety net, meaning, well, I took biochemistry in college, I took anatomy in college, I took histology in college, when those courses come up, you're able to use those as safety nets to put more study into, I didn't have genetics, I didn't have microbiology, I've got to learn pharmacology. Do you see how it works? So that's a rough answer to your question. Does that help?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
What is the average course load for a student at your school?
Yeah.
Like 22 hours?
Well, it is based on hours, to be honest with you. Like pediatrics is a 12-hour course, but the hours that you're used to asking me that question really don't translate to medical school, okay? It's, in the first 2 years, it's more like courses. You would take like 3 or 4 courses. You may have anatomy, biochemistry, histology, and intro to clinical medicine 1. And then the second semester might be, you would know these better than I.
Everyone takes the same stuff, though.
But they
It's about
take the same
19 or
stuff.
20, quote, credit hours a semester, but it doesn't necessarily translate into kind of how you think about undergrad, but everyone takes the same thing. So electives are left for the 3rd year, of the 4th year, and a little bit of the 3rd year. There's some electives as well. But the first 2 years, other than your summers, you take the exact same thing as everyone else. You're all in class together.
And then in your 3rd year, there are 6 clinical rotations. And so all the classes divided up. So let's say right now we have 60 because of this, they're still going to bring a couple years, but that will stop. So let's say we'd have 100. You divide them into 6 clinical rotations the 3rd year. Well, then that's going to be about 15, 16 per group. And you'll do peds, psychiatry, OB, internal medicine, surgery, family medicine, and then a couple of 2. So that's your 3rd year. And then your 4th year, you have about 2 or 3 required 4-week blocks, and then the others are electives, and that's kind of how it works. This gentleman back here.
What is your favorite part about the city of Columbia outside of the School of Medicine?
Okay, I think that's a great
Great question.
I think that's a wonderful question. In fact, we were talking about that coming up here. We said, well, we don't have the ocean. And talk about the ocean, you're right. And if the ocean is the most important part of your medical education, then you need to go to another medical school because there is no ocean. There's the zoo. It's a very nice zoo.
And then there's a place that they have animals at, too.
Yeah. And there's a great lake.
There's a great lake.
I think that the best part of Columbia, at least for me, it's the center of the state, it's the center of the government for state. USC is there that brings in the arts, that brings in all of those sort of things that, as again, a medical student, that doesn't help me. Well, but I might argue, yeah, you're kind of right, it doesn't help you because really you ought to be concentrating on your studies in medical school. The campus, in fact, they did a study about 20 years ago where they went through all the medical schools in the United States and ranked the top 5 in each category. One was research dollars, and ours was ranked in the top 5 in beauty of campus. And it is a beautiful campus. It's easy to park and get around. The students can play, volleyball and soccer kind of on the grounds. So it's kind of the best part of Columbia for me versus what the best part of Columbia would be for you. I suggest it's going to be totally different. If I had to project myself as a medical student, I would say that the resources that are available, the ease of those resources, the gym that's available at the med school, the 24-hour library that's available for the med school students, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are all there pointing toward the medical school student being able to be successful in their educational studies. So that's what I would say with those supplemental things that I mentioned that you can pick and do as your interest may so desire.
And I agree with Dr. Starworth and Dr. Welsh. It's a great question. I come from the standpoint of not being a native South Carolinian. I was born and raised in Virginia, went to medical school there, and came down here. And this really isn't kind of meant as a negative of Columbia, South Carolina, because I've lived there the past 20 years, and I certainly absolutely enjoy my job. One of the things I would tell you about Columbia, kind of picking up on the central part of the state, is it is only 2 hours from the beach and 2 hours from the mountains. And I like that. I like, that it is centrally located. The other thing about it is the cost of living in Columbia, South Carolina, relatively speaking to other areas that you could go to, is cheap. We have medical students who buy houses. I don't necessarily would recommend that unless you really think you're going to do your residency there. We have medical students who come and buy houses because even with the downturn in the economy and the recession over the past few years, the cost of living to live in Columbia as compared to other portions of the state is cheap. And that's yes, we got the arts and we have a university there that brings in a lot of different things, but cost of living is important. And when you're talking about a tuition of $33,000 a year, every little bit helps. And if you can get by at $400 or $500 a month for rent as opposed to $1,200 for rent, that's a big difference.
In pediatrics, we're very big on advocacy. It's one of the things that our residents have to be involved in. Perhaps not as much as the students and those interested through like the pediatric interest group that we have for medical students, but you've got the government right there, and you can go down and actually participate in some of those legislative changes for kids. Because remember, kids don't vote. So pediatricians, one of our responsibilities are to help the kids. And so we have to be the voice for the kids. Unfortunately, their parents aren't many times. And so you've got that aspect right there where you can engage in that if that were to interest you. Yes, sir.
But on the note of the rigorous schedule and curriculum, what is the retention rate for USC School of Medicine?
In terms of, I think that's a great question. Dr. Thornhill can probably to give you the statistics on that. In terms of our job, if you will, is to get you through. But we have to be sure that you have what we require you to have and you meet the standards for being a graduate of our medical school. If you look at the first year, which traditionally is the toughest year because it's a lot, it's new, you've got to get with it. I would say that every year and I'm on this academic review committee, so every student that has any academic difficulty has to come before me where we flesh out, can they move forward? Are they prepared to move forward? Do we need to recycle them? Because we will recycle. We'll say, look, we need to take a break. We need to help you get these things fixed in your life, and we're going to recycle you and come through again. So the attrition rate per se, do you mean attrition rate of the number that actually come in per year and graduate that year? Because there are those that recycle. How many would be average this year? I would say
97, 98.
I was ready to say, I was going to say 3. 3 out of 100, which would be about that do that. Now, there may be one that decides medicine's not for them, and they choose to not continue. I would say that would be one every 3 or 4 years might do that.
Yeah, I'd say almost one a year, you know.
One a year would do that?
But usually the first year class would be.
Okay, and of course, I teach at the third year, so I may not even know who those people are.
And on that note, what programs do you have in place that where because obviously people are going to struggle that first year because
Yes.
they maybe not know how to cope with that. What programs
Oh,
do you have
yeah.
in place
Well,
to like
number
help?
one, the teachers are available to sit down with you one-on-one. We are aware of your grades. We are calling you in to try to talk with you. I don't know that it's a program. It's more of an individual attention that you're getting from the faculty, that you're getting from student services, that you're getting from curricular services, that you're getting from the admissions committee. We actually look at you one-on-one and sit down and we'll sometimes say, what is going on in your life? What are you not telling us? Now, you're going to come before me once the grades come out, and we're going to get into it, but of course, we're trying to keep you from having to come before me. And so we offer a service. The faculty is there that have tutoring sessions. They'll offer tutoring sessions. One of our big questions is ARC in the academic review when the students come before me. I'll say there were 8 special tutoring sessions given by this faculty in this course that you did not do well. You chose to go to none. Just doesn't look good, does it? So you have to do your part. We are not the Gestapo. You know, we're not coming into your bedroom and forcing you to do X, Y, Z. But then you're going to suffer the consequences of making poor choices. It's just part of it. But we are there for you, not against you. We're doing everything we can. Once we accept you, we're doing everything we can to help you get through. But you've got to do your part. Questions back? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think sometimes, you know, I refer to, and some other faculty, I mean, we're very, you know, whether you want to consider it paternalistic and maternalistic in the process, is Dr. Stallworth says, I see your grades first year. You know, they come across my desk, they come across my assistant deans who work with me desk, and if you're not doing well, we're calling you in. I mean, we're not waiting for you to fail. And I think that's, you know, in some sense maybe a very different approach from other places. And so, yeah, we know about you and we know your business, and some people don't like that we know your business, but that being said, we want to make sure you get through. I mean, when I in the admissions committee, when I call you up and I make the offer, I'm making the offer because I'm expecting you to graduate in 4 years. I'm expecting to keep you there. And yeah, we do have a couple who don't get through, and you know, if we dismiss one student a year, we've dismissed a lot of students because we tend to give second chances and we tend to get people through. Now, if there are emotional difficulties, personal problems going on in people's lives, we send them down to the behavioral counseling center on the main campus, and we let them kind of deal with those issues. Even though I'm a psychiatrist and I appreciate that stuff, I want them to kind of get help downtown for that. But if it's educational, academic stuff, you know, we're sending them to the course directors and we're calling them in and saying, what can we do to help? You know, and what's going on.
In the third year, as well as the first and second year, you get assessed in personal and professional conduct. We are assessing your integrity. We're assessing your professionalism. We're assessing in the third year your rights for others, your trustworthiness. Those things we look at because those are those, you know, a doctor you need, and if we see those things are not being replicated or not being produced or not being practiced by you, you're getting right in, and I hold the power, and I can say, look, this is what we're going to do. We have got to remediate this aspect. I mean, you know, when you look at, remember the guy who killed all those people up in Washington or something like that. Remember, he got a gun and just opened up and shot, and they found him. He's in something. Well, anyhow, if you look back, and this was an open record, if you look back at the evaluations during the residency, they just kept pushing him along to get rid of it. And then and look what ended up. And it was clear in his record that this was a guy that was not, for lack of a better word, right. Well, that's not acceptable at our school. No. You're going to have to do what we would consider the profession deserves and demands. But we're doing it for you. We're trying to keep you from being that murderer, and so you can be in prison for the next part of your life. Somebody about, yes ma'am?
I was wondering how you guys did like impact scores, if you did most recent, if you did highest.
Yeah, that's always a good question. How many did you take? Some people will try to do creative financing. Well, I'll take this one from this column and this one from this year and this one from that year. And we will say it humorously, but it actually may, there may be some content to that. We try to quickly answer your question. We try to look at your best MCAT score, to be honest with you. Would I be? I would be less than honest if I didn't see those others right before me. But we really try to look at your best MCAT score. And if you don't get in, and we say it's the MCAT, and you go back and reapply, and we take the MCAT and it improves significantly, then we're just looking at that improvement. Because you've done exactly what we've asked you to do to get in. So the bottom line is the best MCAT score. Would that be fair to say?
I mean, we saw people this week whose last year's MCAT was a 25. They came, we did interview them with a 25 last year. This year they presented a 32 and they got interviewed. You know, and at that point, the 25 didn't make any difference.
Was there another hand back in the back? Sorry. Okay, yes ma'am.
I have a question. How do you how do you prepare students for the boards?
Okay,
how do you
this.
make sure that they're successful?
Well, that's good. That's a good question. I think that it honestly reflects the education that has preceded taking the boards. Number one, you would finish up your second year like in May, and you can take the boards. It's kind of, you take them when you want to between then and June 20th or something like that. And so a lot of students will actually just take time off to review on their own. They will seek out their professors that may say, you know, what's a tactic for me to take to do the best that I can. They will have small study groups. There will some study on their own. I don't think there's just a blueprint to give you there, but I think it's a culmination of a reflection of the entire curriculum up to that point. The test, for example, a biochemistry is divided in the first year into first semester and second semester. But the second semester end of biochemistry test actually reflects the whole year. Trying to keep you well-greased, well-oiled to know biochemistry, because now it's coming the next year when you take your step to the board. So we are trying to set our students up to be successful by being good role models and being stewards of their education, but also them understanding their responsibility to their education too, and setting up the timeline by which they can study to be successful. That's about the best I got.
Well, you know, I think in full disclosure, I mean, the question that you're asking, or I assume that you're asking, I know that there are other schools that actually have board review courses, or that are kind of set up as part of their curriculum. And to be quite honest, we do not. You know, our students have done, you know, very well on boards. We haven't never felt the need to do that. However, as kind of Dr. Stallworth has said, one of the things we do build into our curriculum is at the end of almost all but one or two of our courses in the first 2 years, you take a national standardized exam. And so you are, you know, have a very good appreciation of where you're falling kind of nationally on these standardized exams for biochemistry, for anatomy, for pharmacology, for physiology, for pathology. And so that you come out of that with a very good, you know, appreciation of kind of where you are with that. Now, does that mean that we don't help students? No, not at all. Certainly, we identify, just like we do through grades, students who aren't doing so well on those. We pull them in, we talk to them about how you're going to prepare for boards, suggest to them ways that they can do that. There's loads of, you know, organizations, and whether it's Doctors in Training or Kaplan or Falcon, or you can kind of name the review courses and places that are out there. And many of our students use those resources when they're studying for boards. But as far as us actually having some type of review course, we haven't found a need to do that, and we don't do that.
Another question? Harry, you want me to wax eloquently on? Yes.
Whenever you are taking into account GPAs, are there different majors that you look at within the GPA in accordance with that?
I don't know as much as it is the major as it is the courses that reflect that GPA. I've always remembered that one of the students I taught that ended up being number one in the class was a Parks and Recreation major from Clemson. And she was number one in the class. Whereas you might say, you know, but there's, you know, I'm just giving you the point of the question that you're asking. Traditionally, as mentioned, by far and away, biology, you know, 50% of those. But you can major in anything you want. And sometimes it's kind of interesting. We were talking about Whit in terms of what he's pursuing, which is kind of an interesting slant on medicine and looking at, for lack of a better word, the epidemiology, maybe a little business side of medicine, which is a very nice complement because medicine has morphed a little bit from the days I was in medical school to more of a business and more of a governmental agency almost, if you will, in terms of being sure you meet these forms and these criteria, et cetera, et cetera. Because we all know about healthcare reform and the need for our healthcare to be improved so it doesn't go broke and the constituents deserve healthcare. So I think that there are, different strokes for different folks. I think there are different slants on what you're doing and why you're doing it, and that kind of comes back to many times that personal statement that you may be writing about, showing about why you're choosing to do this, that really gives us a neat little insight into how you're viewing medicine, which albeit would be different, but might actually be a wow factor.
And I guess one caveat to that, is anyone here an engineering student, engineering major? Got one individual? I would comment on the fact that, while absolutely right, the large majority of our students are still biology majors and chemistry coming in second, and we see a wide range of other things. I would tell you that personally, I give a little bit of slack to engineering majors because I appreciate how rigorous those programs are. They just started a biomedical engineering major down at USC, and whether it's the engineering majors here at Clemson or Georgia Tech or anybody who's going to get through one of those engineering programs, I know how difficult those are. Members of the committee know how difficult those are. So sometimes we give a little bit of slack on that GPA to the engineering majors just because we appreciate the tremendous kind of academic difficulty that most of those programs put those students through. But as Dr. Starwood said, we appreciate any major and look at any major. I guess, I'll speak personally for me, I think we give a little bit of slack to the engineering majors.
Another question? Any other area? Well, what we can do is, Dr. Welch, Dr. Thornhill, and myself can stay around for those of you who need to leave. If you want to ask us a personal one-on-one question, we're happy to do that. We'd like to thank Dr. Smith for always, and Leah and the whole team for having us up. We always enjoy coming to the upstate. It's just the crisp air and coming in the fall and seeing the leaves change, and so we enjoy it very much, but we thank you for your attention. We're at USC. There are ways to go on the website, there are ways to come down and see us. We can put you through the day in the life of a medical student. There are trips that come down yearly many times that Dr. Smith and or others will bring to meetings, to whatnot. And I implore you to invest in your education by looking around and being sure that if you have a choice, you make the best choice that's possible for you. So once again, we're there for you as much as hopefully you will be for us in the future. And we've had, again, a very nice dinner. Thank you for that. And we'll stay one-on-one to answer any questions anyone may have. Leah, thank you.
Thank you.
Tigers.